Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Brittany with Modern Day Raptors and Zazu, my green wing macaw. Today we are going to be doing a little meet and greet. That way all of my old followers and my new followers can kind of get the full picture of Zazu's backstory and why he looks like what he does. Because I get a lot of comments and messages and why Zazu does look like a scruffy puppy. Zazu and I met about a year ago. I was working at a privately owned zoo where Zazu was kept. He was donated by a family that sadly were not taking very good care of him. He was kept in an enclosure that the size of a small dog crate. These birds need a lot of space, and due to that confinement, Zazu sadly developed arthritis, so he was never able to lift his wings properly like a bird should. So he's got arthritis in both wings, and this arthritis prevented him from sadly learning to fly. He also was fed, from what I understand, a pretty sugary pellet diet, a lot of tree nuts, which these birds do need tree nuts. They just don't need to be their predominant diet. The lack of movement and high sugary diets sadly gave this poor boy thickening of his arteries and an enlarged heart. Looking at him, other than his scruffy appearance, you would never know that he's got these ailments. So it's always a good idea to take your birds, regardless of what backstory you're given, to the vet once a year just to check them out. I would have never known that he had either one of these if I did not take him to my awesome vet and get x-rays, blood work to see the different kind of things, because I wanted to know exactly why he was plucking. Sadly, come to find out, it's just behavioral. During that time there, he was in the small cage with his original owners. It was theorized that he was not given a lot of space to play with. From the behaviors that he has, he uses his wings a lot to kind of play with. Like, you can just tell that he was not given other things to entertain himself with. So his wings, his feathers have become his play toy, which is really sad. Even though he has a lot of toys now, he still likes to play with his feathers. But once he was donated to the zoo, he ended up growing in a ton of his feathers, thankfully, because they were treating him like the little king he is. And then I started working there, and sadly we developed a very strong bond, which is good and bad when you only work so many days a week. So we were seeing that Zazu here develop a strong bond with me, which was causing him to have separation anxiety. So anytime that I was gone, he would self-mutilate even worse, causing him to look pretty naked. And then he was acting out towards the other keepers, did not want to hang out with them as much. So eventually I kind of begged my manager to allow me to adopt Zazu. So thankfully they finally caved and allowed me to adopt him. Zazu has been a member of my family now for about 7 months. During that time, we have done a lot of diet conversion to a much more healthy lifestyle. He is a little foodie, surprisingly enough. He will try pretty much anything I give in front of him. His absolute favorite is sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes and beets are probably his favorite things ever. But what are you doing down there, Zazu? Come back up here. But we've been converting him to eating a ton of different kind of vegetables. I am a huge advocate for the more variety you can give your bird, the better. It doesn't have to be consistently the same kind of foods every week. It's actually better to kind of vary them up. I try to throw one new kind of vegetable in a week or every other week, depending on what the stores have. The cashiers always look at me crazy when I'm asking for something like a rutabaga or a beet or a turnip. Apparently nobody knows what those are. And then on top of the vegetables, I like to give a lot of fresh herbs, because those are always good for like digestion. They make them smell delightful. Like this morning you got mint and you smelled delicious. And then with him having arthritis and being a little older, I like to always add in fresh ginger, turmeric sometimes. I do warn you, turmeric and beets will kind of dye your bird's hands. If you do feed your bird beets, do not be alarmed if their poop has red in it. Yes, the very first time I ever saw that, I thought my bird was dying, but it's just beets go in red, beets come out red. It's just a crazy thing. So don't ever be alarmed on that one. And then on top of the herbs, I do dried herbs sometimes in their dried mix. I do a sprouting mix of seeds. I will put somewhere on the screen the video I have explained how to sprout your seeds. With him, I do a huge variety of different kinds of seeds. In the video, it goes directly over exactly what you need, where I get everything. It's super easy process. He loves it. And then sometimes I will sprinkle in a little bit of calcium because giving this guy a cuddle bone is absolutely a waste of time. He will crunch it down and just throw it on the bottom of his cage in like 3 seconds. So sometimes I will shave a little bit of cuddle bone a couple times a week into his food. Not a lot. You don't need an excessive amount of calcium, but they do need calcium. I don't really feed too much fruit. I will usually give them fruit 1, maybe 2 times a week. Sometimes I'll skip a week. Most of my birds are not super into sweet foods anyways, but too much sugar will definitely cause them to have hormonal issues, have them have excessive amount of energy, which excessive amount of energy in like pretty much a toddler with bolt cutters for a mouth, not super fun. You stop, you get back up here. Like I said at the beginning, they do need tree nuts. I reserve tree nuts 100% for bonding, trick training, to get him in his cage. I've taught almost all of my birds that if I shake the treat jar, that means that they're going to go into their cage. That makes it super easy for myself, or if anybody else needs to watch my birds, they know they're only going to get their treats if they go inside of their cage. Usually I can shake it, point to his perch, and he'll walk right in no matter where he is in the house. And then, let's see, what else do I normally feed in there? I think that's majority of it. I'll probably put it in the description too, kind of a little bit more rundown on his diet. And then being that he can't fly, I do try to pretty much make my whole house, that's the behavior he does. That shows that I think he never got toys to play with. He definitely plays with his wings like that all the time. Oh, do not regurgitate on me. Nobody wants their meatballs. That right there is a behavior that you definitely don't want to encourage. He is super excited right now, and he thinks that he should feed all of the internet a meatball. And by meatball, I mean his regurgitated food, which is not great. Okay, but I'll put in the description kind of more of what his diet kind of looks like. There is no real right or wrong. I know people tend to take really hard stance on food. My biggest thing is the more variety you can offer, the better. You do want to kind of not rely on just one thing. You can't just feed just seeds. You can't just feed just pellets. You can't just feed, even though he loves them to death, sweet potatoes every day. The more variety, the better. And then their cages for these macaws have to be super strong. His beak pretty much can break things apart like it's nobody's business. Oh, he just pooped everywhere. Nobody's business. So tiny gauge bars, he will pop a weld like it's nothing. So I always recommend getting a very sturdy cage. There's a lot of cages on the internet that pretty much say that they are macaw cages, but realistically, I wouldn't put anything bigger than a green cheek codger in it. So I always recommend checking out Facebook Market. They have a lot of used cages. That's where I actually found his cage. I found it for a steal of a deal. Cage brands I recommend for macaws are King's cages. King's cages will last you an eternity. They are expensive. I would rather pay the expensive money up front than having to buy several cages for him throughout the years. What are you doing, Zazu? Stop eating my stuff. This is a toddler right here. But again, I found his, which was a King's cage off of Facebook Market, again for a steal. You do want to make it as big as you possibly can. The more out of cage time, the better. Being that he is technically handicapped, unable to fly, my house is 100% handicap accessible. He pretty much can get anywhere the other birds can get. He has little ladders, ropes, stuff like that, so he can just climb and have a heyday. The more climbing and more exploring he does, the more exercise he's going to get in general. And then their toys. Their toys are not cheap. Like, I have some toys on my website that I have linked down in the description that are fairly large. Like, it's way bigger than Zazu here. Yeah, this is about the size that you would need. Oh, don't steal that, Zazu. These ones are only $25 on my website, which is pretty cheap. I think this chain, too, is super indestructible. or at least has been so far. Zazu here will break any chain that he finds. Thankfully, he has not figured out how to break these ones yet. So that's why I more or less designed these for a very destructive bird. But I've seen macaw toys range from $60 to $100, and he legitimately can go through a toy in a day if he wanted to. Some days he is more playing with my curtains than his toys, and then other days he shreds through his toys like it's nothing. So that can be extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. I don't always recommend getting a bird for a bird. Zazu here does not appreciate my other macaw at all. He would rather chase him away if he could. Zazu is very content with being my best friend. He doesn't bother the rest of my birds, but he absolutely hates my other macaw. But if you don't have another bird in the house, you 100% have to be their flock mate. You have to be their buddy for life. They're expensive, just 100%. Their exams are expensive. When I got him and I did his tests to make sure he wasn't having any underlying issues with his plucking, make sure he didn't have any diseases, even though he did come from the zoo. I want to do extensive testing just in case, because he was exposed to so many people, so many other birds. You just never know. Somebody walking into a facility like that could have something on their feet. You just never know. So I wanted to clear him 100% before he got to know the rest of my birds, because it can transmit pretty easily. That exam, just all that, the x-rays, you have to sedate a bird this big to get x-rays, blood work, all that. It was, I think, $1,000 to $1,100 for that exam. I probably won't have to do an x-ray every year, but that's a yearly thing, because you have to go to a vet that specializes in birds. You can't just go to a dog and cat clinic or anything like that. But if I forgot anything, do leave it in the comments. If you have any more further questions about Zazu and his feather plucking destructive behavior. Oh, you're just a little baby. But he is a sweet little boy.